Hi, everybody. I'm back with more wisdom of David Hawkins. And David Hawkins, that's the name of the book that I read and that I'm talking about today. When he wrote these books, it was in the early parts of the 2000s. My husband, I remember, got a book like in 2003 or 4, and he wrote several from there. And he's also on YouTube, if you're ever interested in going to that forum to hear what he had to say. This one is The Wisdom of David Hawkins, and this is part 2. And so if you didn't get to see part 1, you might want to watch that one first. But it's all a bunch of information from the book. So there's not really any chronological order you have to watch it in. It's just wisdom that he shares. So before, we were talking about how if we are spiritual, we can simply by our intention uplift humanity, simply by acting, walking our talk, doing what needs to be done. And it can lift up people in a collective fulfillment. And so even those people that are having problems on the other side of the world, if you are have integrity and you are wanting to intend for them to feel the healing or to uplift them in the vibration, then all you have to do is keep your vibration up. Okay. So integrity has recently emerged as a social value. And this was way before what happened in 2020. Okay. Our spiritual choices tend to determine which direction that we choose. Identifying as separate beings is a disconnect. We need to go to silence and honor our places as a witness to our own thoughts. We also are part of the collective. We are not separate. There is no separation. And that's why if you heal yourself, you can heal another. And what you do in the microcosm can also happen in the macrocosm. This is what he says. Spiritually evolved people inspire others outside of their awareness. It invites spiritual curiosity as a kind of consequence of being in that field of consciousness. We need to be willing to surrender to God during times of disaster, which is the hardest time to do it. We're right in the middle of a death, or we're in the middle of a disaster that's happening on the planet, or a divorce or whatever. We get, sort of gobsmacked by it. And yet we don't usually surrender to it. We usually tense up and we want to fight that so hard. And that is Western mind. We have been taught that that's the right thing to do. You're a sports lover, you watch the game and only your team is any good. Much as I am easy to say these things that he talks about, it's harder to be that thing. Okay. But I had to do that when my roof was a disaster, and that happened last year or at the beginning of this year. And I had to really humble myself and really just ask for something I would not have asked for in the beginning. And that's not like me. So it's very interesting how we can effectively change the choice of the way we look at something if we know we need to, but we don't always know that. Humility is a willingness to surrender to life, to let go of wanting to control it or to change it, but a willingness to surrender to how you see things by giving it to source. Turn it over to God. Turn it over to higher power. Do not hold on so tightly. Let it go. My best explanation of this would be if you're giving birth to a child, they have the Lamaze classes you take, and it's all through the breathing, and it's to help you relax yourself. Because if you're tense and you want to have a baby, it's not very helpful. You can't really push that baby out when you're that tense. He says God is infinite power, and we can surrender to be the best person we can become. But we will have to forgive ourselves and others, and also see the limitations that are inherent in human consciousness. And, we have to realize that there are some people or some situations that we have no power over. And if we don't release it, then it's not going to change anything. It's just that it's going to make it harder for us, and we're going to be more miserable. So He then talks about the obstacles that we have to spiritual growth. I think all of us could come up with a few obstacles that we can think of. The harder one pursues a spiritual path, the more elusive it seems. And I've had people in the chat, people asking questions and saying, when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? I did that. And the more tightly I held onto it, the more elusive it was. It wasn't going to come. It has to progress in its own time, in its own way. It has to flow. If you ever get a chance to read a really good book by a psychologist, his name is Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and I realize that's a big mouthful of a name. But he wrote the book Flow and Finding Flow. And you can find that on any Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever you get your books. It was written in the 90s, and it's fabulous. Spiritual truth, Hawkins says, is transparent. It's a true spiritual teacher that frees you, and truth is freely given. No gurus are needed. And this is another reason why I have a hard time with people who want to make money, so to speak, out of spiritual things. And I understand why. And I understand that, you have to make a living, you have to eat, you have to do whatever it is you do. But here it says that truth is freely given. And, a donation and value, they say, can change the way that you look at something. In other words, if it's free, it's probably not any good, is what people will say. But I don't think that. I think we need to shift that perception. I think it has to be, if it's freely given, you are really, really fortunate that you found this person who could do that for you. Many people who are religious aren't worshiping God, but are worshiping their religion. And they're not even really doing that, many of them. To be a truly spiritual seeker, to be a truly religious person, you have to know that which you are seeking is also seeking you. And, the dogmas that separate us, again, are illusions. We need to think about it in a more cohesive, collective way. When operating from the ego, the intent we have is to displace reality with its own perceptions and project them onto the world. I'll say it again. When operating from our egos, the intent is to displace our reality with its own perceptions, because that's all it is our perception, and project them out onto the world. In other words, my way or the highway, this is the only way you're going to find truth or whatever. That's BS. There's always other ways. Truth is not a straight line. Spiritual humility and the inability to discern truth was something that went on forever and ever. It's still happening. We're still seeing it. We still see people that can't discern the truth. And so the avatars came to reveal that which is unknowable to us. We must ask for a revelation humbly, then stand back and surrender, because the answer will come. Do not put a time limit on it. Let it flow. Once again, you're letting the universe work through you. You're not trying to work through the universe. Negative feelings are based on the same delusion, that the source of our happiness is something outside of ourselves. Oh, I'll only be happy if I have a coffee. I'll only be happy if I have $100,000. I'll only be happy if. No, it's an illusion. We have to know that the only source of our happiness is ourselves. People say, when I get this, then this. When I do this, then I'll be able to do that. No, it's all now. Life is only now. There is only the present. That's all, the present. That's why they call it a gift. If you don't get it, you feel guilty, self-blamed, worthless, depressed. And I've seen it. I've seen people say, I tried and tried and tried and tried, and it just doesn't work for me. What am I doing wrong? There must be something I'm doing wrong. Yeah, you're holding on too tightly. You have to let it go. You have to let it come on its own. And don't worry about time. Time is not linear. Time is all there is. All negative feeling is based on the assumption that what you need is outside of you, and it makes you feel incomplete until you have it. But if you do get it, if you finally get that thing that's outside of you that you really want, it's never enough. We want now better, more, new things. I use the idea of the cell phone with that. With my students in the classroom, I say, how many of you get a new cell phone every year? And, I get everybody raising their hands. Why? Is the other one not working? No, but that one's got to be better. Maybe it isn't. Maybe a flip phone certainly does a job, but not very, and I know we're getting them back, but that isn't what makes people happy. It's never going to make you happy if you're only looking for things outside yourself. So he does talk a little bit about divination, tarot, pendulums, and I'm not sure why he doesn't agree with any of them. And so in this particular sense, I don't agree totally with what he has to say on the subject, because I do not believe he's schooled enough in it to know the difference. I'm not saying that I'm picking and choosing what I agree and disagree with. I'm merely giving you the bulk of what the information is that I've read and what it means. But I don't really see it. I see it as a tool. I think people could see it as, well, I got to get a tarot reading. I got to get a reading. I got to get a reading. And they spend lots and lots of money getting those things. And the tool that is meant to be is to offer you whatever it is that you need to know and to discern whether that is true for you or not. The same thing is with readings. Some people don't like readings. Some people do. Some people, go to a medium or go to a psychic and they ask questions. So David has his own feelings about that, and it's okay because we can agree to disagree. He talks about spiritual truth, and really blew my mind with this one. And he says, truth is the same, no matter what or where truth is. It is true everywhere, excludes no one, and is open and available to all. Now, I was an ethics teacher, and there's such things as belief systems in different parts of the country who don't have have similar truths with regard to the way they treat their people or the way that they handle, certain situations. But truth is truth everywhere. And I think of course, he's talking more about spiritual truth because that's what the book is all about. So he says it's available to us. We don't need anybody to tell us where it is. We don't need, it isn't excluded. In other words, you can get it just as much as I can. And so can somebody on the other side of the world. We all have that availability. And we also have that idea of discernment that's with us. He says, peddling ancient secrets is a fraud. We have that with The Secret. We have that with other things that have come out in books for law of attraction and other laws. I don't think you should have to pay for that because it is a truth, and he's right. It's not. It is a fraud in some cases. Oh, this is really new. No, it isn't. There really isn't a lot new. There's only a reshuffling. There's a remembering. There's a re-talking, rediscussing, whatever it is. So I agree that he is right in that regard with, he says, there's not an exclusive person who knows more than another person does, especially about spiritual stuff. And nobody should say they do. And if they do, then you need to run. You're just as available and just as open to these things as the next person is. Truth is nonlinear. It's not subject to our intellect or our form. It is also independent of opinion. Truth is not opinion. Opinion is not truth. It's independent of it. We all have our opinions. We all think our opinions are the right ones. That doesn't mean they're truth. Okay? And, think on that one. Think on that one. Truth has no opposite. Where there's truth, there's no force or intimidation, no rituals. Truth is freedom and it is free. There is no hierarchy. It isn't like, well, if you become this person, this priest or this guru or this, you're going to get more information, then you'll be able to share it with everybody. And you need to charge them lots of money because you're the only one that knows. It's available to you all, everyone. If you want to know what it is, seek it internally, seek it in whatever manner that you feel is important to you. The essence of a thing is that which is. The essence of a thing is that which is. I am that. I am that. I am that tree. I am that dog. I am that other person. I am my enemy. Because we're all connected. We are all linked together. We're all part of the collective consciousness. There is no separation. All separation is illusion. In order to transcend spiritually, let go of wantingness, control, admiration. Letting go gives you all that you need. Teacher integrity is important. In all we must say, we must do, we must be responsible to God. But if a teacher is heightened, that sometimes makes it more difficult because all of a sudden their ego is saying, oh, it's me. I'm the one that knows the truth. No, you don't. Spiritual reality is educational and self-supporting. As we become loving, our Kundalini rises, and so we need to avoid unnatural things and training on any mystical powers that might push that Kundalini out too fast. And that's what I remember hearing in the 90s. Be very careful when you're opening up your Kundalini energies because, it can go right to your brain and make you feel crazy and all this stuff. I don't really buy into that because once again, it's a fear thing. I think if your essence, knows the truth. You know the truth. And you are the one that needs to discern the truth. Finally, tonight, I'll end with this: inner calling and genuineness. When one is growing and seeking, there may be others in one's life that may not understand or their pursuit to grow or even further spiritually. Oh, yes, you know that. There are people that go, what are you doing? Why are you doing that weird stuff? That's all woo-woo. It's weird. No, it's not. If you're being called to it, it's your reality. All people's inner worth is infinite, and its potential also is infinite. We are all worthy. We're the ones that make the choices, and we're the ones that are the hardest on ourselves. And with that, I leave you tonight with that little tidbit of joy. Thank you so much, as always. Sending love. I'll be doing other until I finish all this information, but it's so important just to do it in small chunks. Anyway, have a good night.